G'day guys, welcome back to True Eagle for a Western Derby preview this week. Western Derbies, particularly in recent times, haven't been games I've looked forward to. I think over the last few years there's always been this potential for it to go really badly, and West Coast has set a new standard for what a game going badly looks like. And in the last three derbies we've played, one of them went horrifically and one went amazingly and one was sort of just all right. It was really a Goldilocks kind of trio of derbies. But for this one, I'm able to get a little bit excited for it. And I know that might just be my undoing, but you got to let yourself get a little bit excited, right? So the reason being is I think there is some cause for optimism going into this game. There should be some belief that it can go well. And I'm not feeling as defeatist as I was 7 days ago on the basis that last week went pretty well. And it also helps that Fremantle has been in a little bit of a spot of bother in the opening fortnight for a team that I and others expected to do quite well this season. They've misfired to start the year, so that only helps. And they've got a few key injuries. So today we're going to preview this game coming up. I have done a preview with Druzy on the Freo Faithful channel. I know that most of this audience will be West Coast fans, but if you want to see the preview, Druzy has started a Fremantle channel as well because he loves to copy me, with UCAT, I should say. And the preview for that should be up around about now. But today I'm going to do one just by myself for you. And I've had some feedback, I think people like to see these previews after the teams come out. Unfortunately, that is just not possible for me right now in my current routine. So let's start with last time we met. I'll go through a few Oppo Watch things. I did a little bit of a quick research on Fremantle's first 2 weeks. Some team news, which is interesting. I want to go through some matchups before ultimately giving a prediction. So last time we met, we probably do want to broaden the focus to that trio of Goldilocks performances that I alluded to. So in the last three, we did lose one by 101 points, which was just astounding when you consider we were up by 2 goals at quarter time and then just stopped. We don't need to labour on that too much. Lots happened, and I do like to think we are further along as a team than we were in 2023. And then, the first derby of 2024 was unbelievable. I'll never forget waking up in America at the halftime score, and it was the best hangover cure ever. Harley Reid goes ballistic. Jake Waterman announces himself probably for the second week in a row. I think he kicked 5 or 6 in that derby, and Yo won the medal. So that was outstanding. I do suspect, Fremantle were possibly sitting ducks in that game, but I don't think anyone saw us playing that well coming. We were 64 points up at three-quarter time and playing extremely well. And we're going to potentially have Waterman available for this game. We'll touch on that shortly. But then there was another derby more recently than that, which I like to forget. But I think if there was an argument to be made that, Fremantle won't disrespect us this time because we beat them last year. Well, that was also true in the second derby last year. We were good enough to get a few goals in front. Now, we did ultimately lose the game. Josh Tracy went nuts in that third quarter. I remember he kicked, 4. It might have all been in the same quarter. And we just weren't quite good enough to beat Fremantle on that day. And then we were playing against a team that I thought, clicked into a gear that we didn't have at the time. And probably still don't, frankly. But interestingly, Fremantle have not won a game since. They lost all 4 games to finish that season, to miss out on finals, and I think they might have been close to top 4 at the time of that game, or in the mix for it, and have lost their 2 opening games to start the year this year. So there's something to be taken from that, hopefully. But the point I was actually making there was, the fact that Fremantle were probably going to expect a good version of us that day. We were still good enough to get ahead, and I think in the third quarter we were up by a few goals. So that's something. And I have noticed, maybe it's always been the case, but I have noticed the last few derbies have been particularly fiery. It's probably because Harley Reid's playing and he's a fiery customer, as we've talked about at length on this channel. I do think it bodes well that Harley does play well against Fremantle. I was thinking about it, why is that the case? Well, I do think despite being inconsistent, he might lift for a big occasion. There's been a heap of pressure on him. I'm just kind of feeling he's going to play well, but I also don't think they necessarily have an out-and-out certified tagger that's going to go to him. So hopefully from a matchup point of view, with a smaller midfield, that will allow Harley to get back into the game. I'm not demanding a medal-winning performance from him, but obviously we're just hoping he finds some touch, finds some confidence, and starts to enjoy it as well. And I just got a little feeling he's going to play well. Let's talk about Fremantle in particular at the moment. So they've had, in addition to, dropping the last 4 last year, this year started unexpectedly, I would say. I thought they were going to take it up to Geelong in round 1, and they got pants. Now, that's not something that we should blow out of proportion. Sometimes teams start slowly, right? They lost that game by 78 points. Before last week, going down by 3 points to the Sydney Swans, who are a good team. Both of those opponents are good teams, and from memory, a lot of the teams that they've played in their last 6 that they've lost have been good, with the exception of Essendon. I think there was GWS in there. There was another loss to Geelong last year. Port Adelaide beat them in the final round in what was a strong performance from Port Adelaide. So we'll keep it in context as well for that. Having said that, though, I do remember one thing about Fremantle last year was that their clearance game was absolutely top-notch. And if I'm not mistaken, I think at one point they were, historically good for clearance differential. Now, interestingly, they're bottom 4 for clearance in the opening 2 rounds. Small sample size. They've played Geelong, they've played Sydney, but what was their A game last year? They have not been able to get clicking, really, to start the year. Caleb Strong was well held by James Jordan last week. So I guess for us, specifically on Sarong, I think he's won 3 Glendinning Allen medals, so he does love a derby, and I don't know if we have someone we would really send to him. So that'll be an interesting watch, but nullifying their clearance dominance will, be one step in the direction of potentially jagging a derby upset here for us. They're also the worst tackling team in the competition across the first 2 weeks. Again, very small sample size, but it's always interesting to note when a team is ranked lower than us in a given stat. What I think does work in our favour as well, they've got a couple of big outs, and we have a few of our own, but Sean Darcy out as number 1 ruck. They do also have Luke Jackson, but nonetheless, I think a big, monstrous ruck like Sean Darcy is probably a tougher opponent for us. It's hard to say. I mean, Fremantle fans probably had their own response to that. But I think Sean Darcy, at his best, is a very good player. So probably do prefer these out of the team for this particular derby. Hayden Young is also a big out for him. I think he and Darcy are listed as 1 week on the most recent injury list that was released today. So we can expect them not to play. I also know that Brandon Walker had a fairly serious shoulder injury against the Sydney Swans. Not one of their most key players, you'd think, but still worth noting. And I suppose the other thing to profile about Fremantle is scoring power has once again been an issue for them to start the year. I think both of their scores have been in the 60s off the top of my head. They scored 65 against Sydney, and it was similar against the Cats. So they haven't really found reliable avenues to go outside of Josh Tracy. He will be a big matchup for us, and arguably the biggest matchup in the game. He was instrumental in them overcoming us in the last derby, and he's a hard matchup. Does he play deep, or is he likely to play up the ground? I seem to remember he dominated in just about every way the last time we played him. So looking at guys like Harry Edwards and McGovern, I don't know if either of them are suited to playing on an athletic key forward like a Josh Tracy. I wonder if Harry Edwards might go to a Patrick Voss, who plays a bit deeper, and we'd like to probably isolate McGovern to a little bit less of a lockdown role, I think works best. So who do we play on Tracy? Well, I'm not sure, but maybe could Jinby play a little bit of a role like that, assuming that Tracy plays a little bit higher up the ground? Do we let him potentially have some impact higher up the ground and back in Harry Edwards to nullify Patrick Voss? It'll be a tough matchup. He's a really good player, but outside of that, I mean, there's Brady Hoff. Hoff is tall. I don't think he has the strength of a Jinby, and he's quick, maybe not as quick as Jinby either. But there's also Shea Bolton. Shea Bolton is a great player, and he's played 1 game. It was very quiet against the Swans, but I'd still rather have Hoff blanket him because he is an absolute match winner. We'll talk about our team news. So we can expect Jack Graham to play from all reports. He is listed as a test, and Jake Waterman, pleasingly, is listed as a test. Now, I have no idea whether it's a good idea to play Jake Waterman. I think the only people who know that are those close to the situation. I will highlight that he seemed to have a bit of a calf awareness going into round 1, and sure enough, injured that calf. At least that's the story as I understand it. But it would be great to see him play if he gets up. And usually when a player is listed as a test, there are a pretty good chance. I think more often than not, the player does get up. So, it would be great to see him just because he will be pretty key, you'd think, as possibly a top 2 player at the club, to us having a chance of converting enough scores to win this game. A few other players in the Waffle that I did not mention in my wrap-up video from the Brisbane game is that the Waffle Eagles actually won on the weekend, and we had a number of players play really well. So stats aren't recorded for those games, at least not anywhere that we can see, not on the Waffle website, other than the goal kickers. But Job Shanahan played forward and kicked 3 goals. Could we see an unlikely debut for Job Shanahan in the absence of Waterman? I don't think you'd play both, but I think Shanahan could be in line for a sneaky shock debut there. And maybe I'm just manifesting that a little bit. Tom Gross has also put together a very good preseason and was reportedly, one of the best on ground in that Waffle game. I'm sort of relying on what people are saying online about that game, but he's a chance to spring a debut. I'm just not sure positionally there is a clear need for him. Clay Hall played really well, and Jack Graham's coming into the side as well. So he might be an emergency. There's also Harvey Johnston, and there's also Bo Allen. Now, Bo Allen is not a player that I necessarily think we need to rush into the side just because he is the high draft pick. I mean, I'm clearly not watching him at Waffle level. Those preseason games I don't even know if they're available to watch anywhere. But as it currently stands, I don't really think there's a clear position for him to take. I'm not sure, we wouldn't drop Tom Cole. Certainly wouldn't drop Brady Hough, Ruben Jinby. I just don't know if there's a clear spot for Bo. So I'd probably hold him off for another week as it currently stands, unless there's some sort of mystery injury. Having said that, I do think there is a possibility we do see some changes from this game, purely because, well, if you look at the first 3 fixtures of our season so far, someone noted on Big Footy that they've been fixtured in the hottest states, in the hottest time of the day, at the hottest time of the year, 3 times in a row. And I do wonder if that's going to have some residual effect. Is there an argument to freshening up the team? I think that's flirting with, danger a little bit there, given that the team played so well as a unit on the weekend just gone. But I do wonder if there could be a possibility for that. So like I said, there's guys like Shanahan, there's Tom Gross, Bo Allen, all likely contenders. Harvey Johnston could come in, and we could see Jack Williams return to the side. I really don't know the status on Archer Reed. Yeah, he went down with some cramp. Would they manage him? I think we have to consider all of these possibilities going into round 3. I'm a fan of Jack Williams. I'm not really sure why he's not in the team as it currently stands. I can only put that down to a preseason where he didn't smash it. I'm not really sure. I think on talent and what he's demonstrated at AFL level already, I think back to that Gold Coast game last year where we won. He kicked 3, and I remember a strong third quarter where he chopped out in the ruck and did really well. So does he come in as second ruck? Well, we also need to consider there's Bailey Williams, and how available is he for this game? So he went off with cramp. They doubled down saying it was cramp, as I've touched on. Did think it was weird that they strapped the injury. Further to that, I've also read that he got ill after the game. So again, I really don't know where this sits, but I would like to see Bailey as the number 1 ruck, considering he's coming up against Luke Jackson, and they're actually stylistically not dissimilar as ruckmen. They're both athletes rather than, big-bodied rucks. Now, Luke Jackson's obviously a lot better, but I thought Bailey played really well on the weekend, and I would love to see him get an opportunity to continue that. So as I said, I think Luke Jackson versus Bailey Williams could be a very key matchup here, and when it comes back to the clearance game and hoping that goes well, one thing that we need to nullify is the ruck dominance that Luke Jackson is likely to have. But like I said, if Bailey puts in another performance like last week, that will go a long way to, like I said, helping us nullify that clearance advantage. I talked about Jinby to Tracy. Let me know what you think about that. Again, I just don't think Harry Edwards is suited to that. I think he's suited to those taller, stay-at-home key forwards. I don't think he has the athleticism to keep up with a Josh Tracy, so I wonder if we give up a little bit of height there for someone who can stay with him as he pushes up the ground. I think Edwards probably goes to Voss, and like I said, Hough to Bolton is probably something I would still do, even though Bolton didn't play well for 1 week. So, having said all that as a preamble to my prediction, I do think that we can win this, but I've been burned so many times on this channel, so I know I'm going to make myself look silly, but that is honestly how I'm feeling at the moment. I didn't have that feeling last week. I didn't even have a feeling that we'd play well. But I'm kind of expecting it this week, and I would be very disappointed if we, really don't show up to this game. I'm hoping, well, I said this against Gold Coast, but I'm hoping the home crowd lifts us for a derby-like atmosphere. Again, we've had these things in the past and it hasn't gone well. So all of this comes down to which West Coast is going to show up in this game. For all the analysis that I just put out there, even on paper, we should have been obliterated by the Brisbane Lions, and we weren't, because we showed up as that version of West Coast that we have seen sparingly for the last 4 years, basically. And if that version of West Coast comes out, we could win. I do have doubts over the ability to sustain a 4-quarter effort in those conditions. Fremantle is also playing in the heat, but they haven't travelled from Brisbane. And I was about to say that we are a younger side. However, that is actually not the case. Fremantle are the second youngest side in the league over the first 2 weeks of this season. Now, I think they've been younger than us for a while because we've had a lot of senior players and a lot of young players, and our mean average was somewhere in the bottom half. But we are still, I think we're like 4th youngest over the first 2 weeks, but Fremantle are still younger than us, so that won't necessarily be a factor. There's no doubt that their younger players are a little bit older and better. Caleb Sarong is still a very young man, for instance. But I do suspect, and I think that Fremantle fans feel this way, that Fremantle could be vulnerable here. But it's also entirely possible that we don't show up. And if we don't show up, Fremantle are good enough to punish us, as they have demonstrated in previous derbies. But I'm going in with a level of optimism. I will also be in attendance at Backchat's event. They're doing a derby preview this Thursday at the Leaderville Hotel. I'm going to get myself down there, so if anyone else is going to that, let me know in the comments and say g'day if you see me. If you want to. If you want to, maybe you think I'm a dickhead and watch these videos ironically. The next time you see me, I'll also have a shaved head because tomorrow I am taking part in the Greatest Shave, which I have talked about on this channel. I want to thank everyone again for some really, really generous donations. If anyone is able to still donate, I will pin a comment in the comment section below with a link. But it's all for a great cause, and it's just if you're in a position to. Thank you so much to everyone who's taken part in that so far. It's well, I was going to say it feels good to contribute. I donated a bit and I'm shaving my head, but some of the donations have been far more generous than anything I'm doing. So thank you so much. I'll also be there at the Derby. So if you see me, say g'day, and hopefully this will be a Derby to savour. The first one last year was pretty damn good, and I am going to touch wood as I say this. I don't think I've actually attended a losing Derby yet because I've been away, obviously, for the last couple of years. So let me know in the comments how you're feeling for this Derby, guys. I think if both teams played their best, Fremantle will be too good, but there is a possibility we play really well and Fremantle can't lift themselves. And that is the small possibility, that small glimmer of hope that I'm clinging to, but I don't think it's ridiculously low. I think last week showed a level of quality that we have, that we can possibly do 2 weeks in a row. We're not going to do it for 23, but if we do it for one more week and win a game, I'll be very happy if it's this week. So let me know what you think in the comments, guys, and I'll see you in the next one. Can't the Eagles.